Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Guilbault Girls Show. I'm your host, Karen Guilbault, and today's guest is Dawson Clemens. 18-year-old Dawson is a guitar player and a singer in a band with his 19-year-old brother, Drew, who happens to have autism. Dawson loves country music and finding different ways to have fun. He is also a volunteer firefighter with the Charlestown Fire Company. So thank you so much, Drew, for agreeing to be on the show and willing to share your journey of growing up with a sibling who has a disability. So I do feel that it's so important to share the different perspectives and experiences of siblings, one, to spread awareness, and two, to let others know that they're not alone. Siblings of children with disabilities have unique challenges, and siblings of children with autism are no exception. But as with virtually everything related to autism, each situation is unique. Because autism is such a wide-ranging disorder, autistic children and teens may present in completely different ways. As a result, siblings may find it relatively easy or extremely challenging to live in the same household. So thank you so much again. I appreciate you hopping on with me.
Yeah.
So I know this is a difficult question to sum up in one word, but in one word, how would you describe what it was like growing up having a brother with a disability?
Difficult.
Difficult. Yes. All right. And then we're going to go ahead and expand on that. And you know what? I have my fan on, so I'm going to turn that off so that way it doesn't pick up the backup noise, which I didn't even think about. Okay. So what was your relationship with Drew when you were little, and how has it evolved?
When I was little, there really was no relationship with Drew. Um, he really didn't want anything to do with me till I was 8 years old.
Okay.
So, but now it's like we're best buddies and like we're inseparable.
That's so awesome. That is awesome. And what type of daily life challenges did you have to watch your brother go through, and how did that make you feel?
Well, story that I tell a lot. When me and Drew actually went to school together, he would have like these meltdowns almost daily, and all my friends at school, they'd hear Drew screaming and be, "Oh, Dawson, there's Drew." And I'm like, yeah, that's Drew.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. During those hard times, was there an outlet that you could escape to?
Um, yes and no. After the fact, I could talk to my parents, but during it was kind of hard to talk to my parents because it was, Drew's got this going on here, and we have to tend to Drew, and not that it's their fault or anything.
Right,
But
exactly. And that's the biggest thing, because it's so important to share the feelings of the siblings, although it's hard to talk about because we love our siblings and we want the best for our siblings and we know that it's not their fault. But in order to help those, we do got to talk about the difficult situations, which is hard because it's always hard, with Faith and JD talking about it too. So yeah, absolutely. I know where you're coming from there, but go ahead.
but my main outlet to just get away from it, get in my own space, was just going outside. And my favorite thing to do, this is gonna sound weird, when I was a kid, I would go outside on the trampoline, and when Drew didn't want to wrestle, I would get a pool noodle and I would do wrestling moves onto this pool noodle, and that would get all the worry out of me.
Yeah. Yeah. How about, did you ever experience any bullying or comments about having a brother with a disability?
Not that I know of, at least. Most of my friends, most of my life, they all love Drew.
Right. And they grew up with you guys. You were in one place. It's not like you guys moved around. So everybody knew you guys since you were
Yeah,
little, which I think
everyone,
is so important because it is hard when you move from place to place because you lose those connections.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And what about your social life and friendships? Did you have your buddies over a lot growing up, or did you find yourself going to their houses instead?
Normally, they always came here, and we actually, when I was a kid, me, my buddy Hayden, my buddy Tyler, we had this wrestling show that we made, and we would put it on YouTube and stuff, and Drew would wrestle with us, and it was always like so cool. Like you'd one day, me and Drew would be arguing, and then next day, hey Drew, you want to film? Yeah, sure. And then it cuts to a scene Drew beating me in the head with a chair. It's just it's funny.
That's awesome. And that's a typical sibling rivalry and fun that you have. So that's good to
That's the
experience.
narrative that we pushed.
Yeah.
Was Drew beat me up when I was little, and now we're gonna have a big match, and I'm gonna come out. And me and Drew are gonna wrestle.
And was it difficult to find people to connect with that having a sibling with a disability that were or are going through similar things as you? So like, of course it's easier when you have somebody that has a sibling with a disability, they can relate more. Did you have any of those connections with people, or how did you kind of feel talking to your friends that really didn't get it or couldn't get it just because of the fact that they didn't live it day in and day out?
Well, my grandfather has a brother with autism, so I can talk to him about stuff that I wouldn't just tell most people. And my friend Hayden that wrestled with us, he has a sister with autism, so I've always had a good support system there.
That's good because a lot of people don't. And I find that there so in any of your schools, did they ever have any support groups, or even outside of your school? Have you have you known any sibling support groups out there?
Um, when I was in the fifth grade, I believe it was, my guidance counselor put together this thing, but I'm pretty sure that we only had like one or two meetings.
Hmm.
But it's kind of just like techniques on how to deal with stress about all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
it's kind of when you need to put that aside and leave it at the door.
Hmm.
And then, because you can't be bringing that kind of stuff into every little thing that you do, but it's
Right.
always going to be there regardless.
Right. Do you think it would be helpful if they actually had those kind of programs in schools for
Yeah,
kids?
for younger kids, for sure.
Yeah, I almost feel and I just like thought of this off the top of my brain right now. Is I almost feel like how they have the best buddies program, or they have the buddies for the kids. They need to have a best buddies sibling group, so that way you guys can mentor the younger kids coming up of on how you dealt with things and have that connection.
Yeah, for a long time, I really just kind of had to learn to deal with it because there's not much that you can do when your brother doesn't want to talk to you. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I would always come up with crazy ways to play with him.
And that's awesome. That shows that you're an awesome brother. So
Yeah,
I think that's good. What about how did you feel when you had to or did you feel like you had to step up and help more around the house or help your brother while growing up? Because I know a lot of siblings do feel that way. And I know, my son had to grow up quick, and like you said earlier, a lot of times, we're busy tending to the siblings. So you guys kind of have to either step up and do stuff on your own, so to speak.
yeah, I'm very lucky. My mom kind of looks at it like I wouldn't ask Drew to, you know, clean all this stuff around the house. So she doesn't expect me to and all that, which the only thing that she's ever really said is I think I was around 7 or 8 years old. She said, Dawson, I need you to step up and be the older brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the older brother, but to Drew,
You
I,
are.
I'm his older brother.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Did you ever feel left out or like you always came last?
Well, I'd hate to say yes, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
Much as I'd love to say no, but
Mm-hmm.
I did. And again, not that it's mom and dad's fault. When I when I was little, Drew always got rewarded Chuck E. Cheeses, and I mean for everything, literally anything. And I'm like, so why am I not getting rewarded? So,
Mm-hmm.
we'd bring in the Chuck E. Cheese every day, and I say to mom, I'm like, why don't I get rewarded? She goes, Dawson, you go to Chuck E. Cheese with us. What are you talking about? But it was always told to me as Drew's reward, and I'm like, why do I not get rewarded? She's like, Dawson, you're literally at Chuck E. Cheese with us. I'm like, oh, all right, I am at Chuck E. Cheese.
Did you ever find your or feel like or find yourself like not acting out but doing stuff to try and get that some of that attention because you didn't get the attention, so
Oh
to
yeah,
speak? Yeah.
oh, oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did some stupid stuff as a kid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about, were there times that you felt embarrassed about your brother? And on the flip side, were there times that you felt embarrassed for him?
So imagine a Mario costume
Okay.
on 6-year-old Drew, but everywhere he went, everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it didn't matter if it was Walmart, walking around the neighborhood, and keep in mind, it could have been blazing hot
And still had it on.
at like 101 degrees. Boom, Mario costume, Luigi costume. So there's a picture of when I finally just gave into it and just said, you know what? You can't beat them, join them.
I love it.
There's a picture of me and Drew in a Mario and Luigi costume sitting in the living room. And I'm actually pretty sure that we went out in those costumes that day because I just knew I was not going to get that costume off of me.
Uh-huh. That's
So
great.
the costumes never ended. When every time me and Drew like wrestle, because sometimes we'll still get the urge to just wrestle.
Uh-huh.
Drew will wear like a scream costume and he'll speak in a Russian accent. I don't know where the Russian accent comes from, but Russian scream is his. That's his gimmick.
Gosh. And again, another testament to you just putting that costume on right by his side is, shows your character. You're a great brother. Were there any times that you ever felt afraid of your brother?
Um, when I was little, sure, but I mean, I've wrestled my whole life, like actually
Mm-hmm.
won state championships and stuff. So if I ever needed to, I could definitely get a hold of him and calm the situation
Chin
down.
down. Mm-hmm.
There's only been one time I've ever had to do that, and I wouldn't hit him or nothing.
Right.
So I don't need to.
Right. Exactly.
But I've definitely dove across mom and dad's bed. No one else was home, and he got a hold of mom. So I've definitely jumped across the bed, and he is weirdly strong.
Mm-hmm.
I I had him like kind of around his head, just holding him still, and he just throws me right on the floor. I'm like, so he comes down and he gets a hold of me, and I manage to just get on top of him and just sit there, and he's doing the whole like
Mm-hmm.
banging me in the
Yeah.
head, and now I joke about it with him, but that's the only time I've ever necessarily been scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you feel like you missed out on doing certain things or going to certain places that other typical families get to do because, they couldn't accommodate your brother? And if so, give me an example on how did that make you feel?
I've never missed out on anything, but we have had to leave like fun activities early
Early.
because Drew sees a bee or it's too loud or just simple stuff like that,
Uh,
which it'd make me feel upset, but as I got older and it would happen, I understood why.
Right. Yeah.
There was plenty of times where that's happened where I've looked at my dad and I said, you know what? I just wish Drew was normal.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's
I've
tough to
also
watch them.
I've told mom, in those instances, I'm not taking care of Drew when you're gone. But
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy now because I cried in the kitchen 3 years ago because I didn't know what was going to happen to Drew when they were gone. So,
Yeah, and we're definitely going to touch on that because that's I think one of the hardest things for siblings. What about were there a lot of times that you felt you bottled your feelings up and didn't share them with your parents because you didn't want to add to their stress?
well, I look like my dad and I hold my emotions just like my dad. Still to this day, I bottle them all up. And then when they come out, they all come out
Come
at once.
out once.
And then, you know, I constantly get the, so what are you upset about? Because it all just comes out at once. Then it gets to a point where it's like, wow, what am I even upset about? Because I've talked about all this at once, and now
Mm-hmm.
I'm all stressed out over a million things rather than just one.
Thing, yeah. But you're aware of it, so that's good. So that shows that hopefully you can work on that and try and get it out when it happens.
At some point.
It's tough. It's tough. When you look at your brother, what do you see and what do you want the world to know about him?
Whew, where do I start? I see the smartest person that I know. I mean, in eighth grade, this is news to my parents too, but he did a lot of my social studies homework. He knows everything about the United States that you could ever ask him. I mean, down to the dates, the presidents in order, all 50 states in order, every capital of them. I would give Drew my homework and say, here you go, Drew, and he'd do it. Say, here's your homework. Because he wouldn't do it if he knew it was mine. I'd say, here's your homework.
Oh my gosh.
And he loved doing his homework with me when he was little.
Mm-hmm.
He had a screaming fit with mom and dad because they wanted to do it with him.
Oh,
I had to come out and do it with
do
him.
it with him.
I'd say, here's your homework, Drew. And he would sit down with me and he'd do it. Yeah, he was the smartest person that I know, easily, and most creative. He wasn't very outgoing as a kid, but he had his ways
Yeah,
communicating, like the Mario costume.
right. And you
But
guys are so involved in the community and active and social and you guys, he's always with you guys and he learned, has learned, I'm sure, a lot from you guys.
as a kid, we used to do this thing. My mom and dad and grandparents would organize it. And it was called Band Together for Autism.
Yep.
So I'm trying to convince my mom to do one more. Because I think that it'd be awesome if Drew could headline that.
Yeah, it would be. And then for all those, now you're like giving me the chills. For all the people that you guys don't see on a daily or a monthly, come and see how much he's grown.
I've I'm trying to get it locked in for 2025, but I don't know, Dawson. I keep saying, but mom, Drew Clemens headline and Band Together for Autism.
Yeah.
And then she always goes, Drew Clemens this, Drew Clemens that. I don't want to hear it.
All right, and then back to that tough question of, what concerns, if any, do you have for his future? Like you said, 3 years ago, you broke down about it.
Well, no one makes his chicken nuggets like dad does. So I kid you not, mom and dad were in Outer Banks, and so me and Kylie were watching over Drew, and we made his chicken nuggets. Bring them to him, cut them up and everything. It was perfect. Drew walks back into the kitchen and he puts the chicken nuggets down. He looks at me dead in my eye. He just sits there for a minute. He goes, Dawson, you made my chicken nuggets with disgust. I'm like, what? I'm like, Drew, what are you talking about? He flips them over. And it's like damp. And I made them the same way that dad does. but they're damp. So there's that. Drew doesn't really make his own food.
Mhm.
If he gets hungry enough, he'll grab a piece of cold pizza out, and then he'll come bother me to cut it up.
Mhm.
And so there's that, and just the thought of him going into a home, just I don't like it. It's not that I think that they would do anything wrong, but it's just he's my brother, so
Right.
like that's
And you have that feeling of nobody can take care of your brother like you and your family can. So then it's like out of your hands and someone else is taking care of him. And then it's that constant worry of,
like they didn't live it.
right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
There'll always be that.
Yeah. 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 It's very, very tough. We just got all of our paperwork and everything together for Faith. And one of the biggest thing was the special needs trust and having a trustee of it, because I didn't want to put that on JD, which is her brother, our son. I wanted him to be there for her, to help her, support her, and make those informed decisions, and not have to worry about all the financial stuff of it. So we ended up going with First Maryland Disability Trust as our trustee, and I feel really good doing that. They were great, talking with them and stuff. And then I think, okay, because he's in the military, is he going to be lifelong? Where is he going to be stationed? Or is his, when he gets married, how's the wife going to be with her? Do we put her in a home? Like, all of those things go through your mind. And it's hard as parents too, to know that, these are our kids. And, it's not this, you guys as siblings job to do that, because it's not your child, but is your sibling, and it puts you guys in a difficult position. So there's so many feelings and emotions that go on when it comes to the future,
Yeah,
really.
I got lucky on all sides of the field. Ever since the first time I brought Kylie over, Drew's loved her, she's loved him, and it's been great. And then, I was talking to Dad yesterday, and I was like, just kind of being a smart aleck, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, like, why should I even move out of your house if I'm going to move right back in?" He goes, "Dawson, I'm not going until I'm 90." I'm like, "Okay." So he goes, "Well, you could just move out, sell the house." I'm like that'd be great. I could just move back over here. Then I already have a bunch of money for bills because I just sold the house. I'm like, I never thought of it like that.
So I know I didn't send this over to you, but I know that your grandparents have lived with you guys since you were what, like 3 or 4 years old. How has that experience been? Um, because it is a very important topic. Because my mother she didn't live with us. We had two houses on our property, and she lived in one. And it was such a huge help. How has that been? And even and I have to say too, as much as I love my mother, sometimes it was tough having her there. And I know JD felt like, okay, he has mom, he has dad, and now he has Grammy, you know disciplining them, disciplining him. So sometimes it could be a lot, but we wouldn't change it for the world. So how has that experience been?
Well, since I was a baby, I've always been like Graham's sidekick. Given I've had a couple things thrown at me, I've have definitely taken Sharpies right between the eyes. Graham's got me. And same with Pop. Me and Pop have always been right there with each other. So I can't really complain about it.
Good.
I'm sure that my mom and dad could probably,
Mm-hmm.
because they run the house.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always been great. If I'm mad at mom and dad, I just go downstairs.
Um,
If I'm mad at grandma, I come upstairs.
uh-huh.
We got a spare bedroom down there, so I don't gotta see my parents if I'm mad at them. I can they go to bed, just sneak back upstairs, go to my room, so on and so forth the next day.
Got the best of both worlds there.
And my grandmother's always trying to get me to go like looking for pottery with her, and I'm like, Graham, I'm like, I love you and all, and I understand that this is all my inheritance. That's what she says, is that it's my inheritance. But I'm like, I just don't want to go. Like, there's a million other things that we could be doing right now. Going to look at pottery just ain't my cup of tea.
But it
But
means so much to her.
there's very few times I ever went out with Graham that Graham didn't get me something. As a kid, it was always like the newest wrestling figure or my Beyblade phase.
Hmm.
And she always took care of us. So
That's awesome.
I got nothing bad but good things to say about it.
That's good. That's good. All right. And what do you wish you could tell others, but don't usually get the chance to? And or what advice would you give to siblings that are just learning that their, sister or brother has a disability?
People with autism are like a sponge.
Hmm.
They don't say much, but they sit there and listen and they soak up every little thing that somebody says. And then they go back to their parents and completely squeeze out the sponge and let them know everything that is going on. And you cannot get away with anything.
Hmm.
I used to be out, my friends out in the living room, and Drew likes to sit out in the living room. And I'm not going to say what the things that we'd say, but every cuss word in the book was said. We're 13, just learning what a cuss word is.
Uh-huh.
And Drew would run and tell mom. And I'm like, throwing my hands up at him, like, Drew, like, what is wrong with you? And, even fireworks in the backyard, the mom and dad are gone, blowing up 2-liter bottles of Coke. It was like, I could not get
Got
away
you
from this
out.
whole thing. And mom would always come back and be like, Dawson, I'm not going to yell at you, but why are you so stupid? Like, why do you do the things that you do? So,
Oh man.
yeah, they're definitely, they don't forget anything.
Yeah.
And they will snitch on you in a minute. But then when they say bad words and you go to, I remember this. Every time I tell Drew, I'd pick on him. I'm trying to tell mom, he'd be, no, 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 no.
Oh my goodness. Mm-mm.
So,
All right.
yeah,
And then what words are very powerful. They're important. They can remind us of some great things uh when they're set in motion in front of us. What word would you choose and why?
I'd say grateful
Grateful?
just because, I've learned so much just from living in the same house as Drew. And, it just makes general conversation with anyone else so much easier because I've only really been able to talk about things that Drew likes with Drew. So, getting to talk to other people, it's so much easier because I can just talk about whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, grateful would have to be my word. I've just learned so much.
Awesome. All right. Well, is there anything you would like to share or anything before we wrap it up?
I think I got it all out of my system.
All right. Well, I appreciate it so much for coming on because I just, like I said, I think it's so important to share the perspectives and experiences of sibling because you guys are a key role and so important. And yet, I don't think I don't want to use the word appreciated enough, but shown the appreciation on how much us moms and families appreciate those siblings because you guys always have to take the back seat in a lot of areas and you guys
Yeah,
are just so grateful and you learn patience and like you get it and you understand it but yet it's still hard on you guys, so I
I've
appreciate
always had to take the back seat because the one time I was allowed to sit in the front seat, my mom became a stupid, terrible mother. Very clever.
Oh my. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, everybody. And stay tuned for next time.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.